and the current health crisis of COVID-19. This is allowed under Chapter 12 of Minnesota statutes, also permitted under state's open meeting law. Is it is permissible to hold this meeting virtually with all votes being a roll call vote. We have one order of business today, and for that I would like to recognize Commissioner Jan Malcolm of the Minnesota Department of Health to present a request to approve Executive Order 2119, extending our current COVID-19 peacetime emergency declared under Executive Order 2001. Commissioner Malcolm, you are recognized for as much time as you may consume.
Thank you, Governor, and good morning, members of the council. I think that the case for extension of the peacetime emergency is again very straightforward and remains compelling. I can boil it down into one word, the current surge, or two words, the vaccines and the variants. Both these dynamics are moving quickly, and the interplay between what we're seeing in case growth fueled by the variants to the SARS-CoV-2 virus. The B.1.1.7 variant in particular has taken hold in the upper Midwest and in the Northeast. We are quite certain that the majority of our cases in Minnesota now, recent transmissions are B.1.1.7, and is accounting for the uptick in case growth. We are now back at about the same level we were in late October, just before that fall surge. So we're watching these trends very carefully in terms of test positivity. We're back above 7%. Case growth per 100,000 on a rolling 7-day average is 3 times our high risk threshold once again. Hospital admissions and ICU admissions are trending up. We tripled the number of beds in use for COVID care from early March to now. We now have 680 people in the hospital. We were at a low of about 200 not too long ago, and 164 people in ICU, and our low there was under 50. So you can see that we've headed back up that curve. What we are very hopeful for is the impact of the vaccines helping to reduce the severity of the illness, particularly among some of our most vulnerable. The vaccine success rate that we've seen in long-term care has been stunning. Hospitalizations and deaths have fallen 95% among long-term care residents who've had very high uptakes of vaccines. So they work. So the challenge is to keep moving as aggressively and quickly and equitably, still immunizing for impact as we can in getting vaccines to Minnesotans to try to keep pace with and even stay ahead of the case growth that we're seeing. And that requires enormous nimbleness. The FEMA site, for instance, that was stood up in about a week's time, that just opened yesterday, could not have been done on that timeline without the emergency powers and the ability to move quickly in lining up vendors and so forth. So I think that's just an extremely clear example of how the emergency powers are still as relevant today as they have been throughout the pandemic. So respectfully ask for your approval of the extension. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Commissioner, and I would echo the Commissioner's clear words on why it's needed. I would also note that all of us in all states are trying to understand what an extended emergency looks like and ways to maybe codify those things. I would note that our forebears were thought ahead pretty well, but I don't know if they could have anticipated a 14-month ongoing emergency. So I think those are valid discussions, but I just do want to be very clear the implications of the ability to use these powers with the check of this Executive Council has made differences, whether it would be providing help and care at those long-term care facilities to the things that the Commissioner mentioned on vaccines and other things. I would note to the Council that you are certainly welcome and we can help facilitate a tour of a very unique partnership with the FEMA facility that, as you said, was stood up in a matter of days, specifically focused on communities with a social vulnerability index that is quite high to try and make equity at the center of this. And it's really good for the soul to see this process of state, federal, local, private partners all working together. It's also quite gratifying to see that, as I said yesterday, the work that's done in that tent is going to allow us, I think, to walk across the street in August to the Miracle of Birth Barn that is right across the street from where this is set up. The normalcy, you can feel it in the air. So I would note none of those things would be possible, and this vaccination effort is dependent on these. And I want to recognize the very important discussion that goes around the judicious use. But as was noted in, I believe, the Mankato Free Press, the Democratic check on this is those constitutional officers on this call. So I'm very grateful for the work you put in. With that, I would open it for any discussions from the Executive Council. Auditor.
Thank you, Governor. Just to also to add some more context to that site, it's also right next to where my next piece of crop art will be showing, and I think that'll help people understand this too.
Yes, how could I have forgotten?
And I know this is something that the Secretary of State Simon has brought out quite a bit, but maybe just a question about our executive powers as compared to other states. I think so often there is a you see people assuming we're either on one end or another. And I think, like many things, I think we're at a happy medium right now in Minnesota. I just want to get some confirmation of that.
Yeah, I may ask General Counsel Percatini to weigh in on that, because this is a question we asked too, looking at other states, seeing what we're using and how we're using them. We did note that there are complications, and every state statutes are different on what happens if you don't use them. I think, again, many on here, the frustration lies between mitigation efforts around the health emergency and our ability to use it. Because when we start being specific and say, would you like us to end the vaccine sites? No, don't end the vaccine sites. Would you like us to end supplemental nutrition programs? No, don't end the supplemental nutrition programs. It ends up being just get rid of the mask mandate or something like that. So, Carl, do you want to add where we kind of fall in that, each state being a little different?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. So at the moment, 47 states are in a state of emergency, but as you both noted, that each state is a bit different in terms of the powers that are afforded to the governor under those emergencies. And we've been working to examine each of the orders that the governor has issued. And as you all know, we've begun rescinding some of the executive orders that aren't necessary anymore. In terms of various business restrictions and so forth, I think looking at around the country, I do think we're sort of in the middle. And I agree, Auditor, that it's changing every day, but that we sort of rest in the middle of the pack at the moment, and have been moving towards less restrictions on businesses.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I would call for a motion to approve Executive Order 2119.
So moved.
And I'll call roll call vote of each member. Attorney General Ellison.
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon.
Aye.
Auditor Blaha.
Aye.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan.
Aye.
And I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. The motion carries and Executive Order 2119 is approved. Before asking for a motion to adjourn, I'd like to take just one moment on the record for a point of personal privilege to thank the Executive Council in an unprecedented event, as we've talked about. And we've been here, I don't think any of us could have imagined, 14 months doing this work. Also in the midst of great civil unrest after the death of Daunte Wright, the trial of Derek Chauvin, and the death of George Floyd. I want to acknowledge the incredible work each and every one of you and your offices have done. Whether it be running the largest and most open and fair election in our state and nation's history, whether it be understanding that the need for fiscal clarity at a time of incredible fluctuations in budgets, both at the county, the city, our schools. We have folks making sure that that's clear. Obviously, defending the state's interests in things from obvious high-profile cases to winning opioid settlements and taking care of our children, and to the executive side. All of that being done, with personal loss of family members during this time, personal illnesses, great changes in your families, children, all kinds of things happening. I think sometimes the humanity of the work that is done by so many and this group, I think should be noted. The incredible responsibility for decisions like this morning are not taken lightly, and you do that in the midst of all of your other responsibilities. So I would just like to say, both as governor, but as a representative of the state of Minnesota, we thank you for the work you do. We know how weighty these issues are and how seriously you take them. So you have our deepest gratitude as the Executive Council of the state of Minnesota. With that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I now call roll call vote. Attorney General Ellison,
Aye.
Secretary of State Simon,
Aye.
Auditor Blaha,
Aye.
Lieutenant Governor Flanagan,
Aye.
and I, Governor Walz, vote in favor of the motion. This meeting of the Executive Council is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.